I feel like this is continuity, right? Like on a demandé quelque chose, puis on va parler après. Right? So it's like give you the full story. All right. Again, I'll start with an opening, and then I look forward to your questions. So we had written for an emergency debate. The speaker accepted that request for an emergency debate tonight on the foreign interference, specifically related to the RCMP allegations of violence perpetrated by Indian government agents. So this is very serious, and I'm honored that we were able to get the speaker to accept that today as something that necessitated an emergency debate. Only a week ago, we learned of these really chilling details of a foreign government hiring gangs to commit a campaign of terror impacting Canadians. But I am disappointed that the Liberals shut down our attempt to bring in a Canada-India Relations Committee, similar to the Canada-China Committee. What I'm disappointed by is that this is an ongoing trend I've seen with the Liberals. They put up barricade after barricade, block after block to pursue foreign interference. We had demanded a public inquiry, and you'll recall the government said no. Again and again, they put up barriers. They brought in a special rapporteur. We said that is not sufficient. That's not good enough. We had to fight that step at every step of the way to finally get a public inquiry. And now, when we're calling for a Canada-India Relations Committee to look at what's going on, to investigate what the threats are to Canadians, to really dig in and to do that important work, the Liberals again put up a blockade and said no. I know that the work of this committee may not look good on the Liberals and on their inaction. It may not look good on Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. But as the Prime Minister himself said, there are parliamentarians that are directly alleged to be involved. Specifically, as the Prime Minister said, conservative parliamentarians that are connected to foreign interference coming from the Indian government. That is serious. We need to take it seriously, and we need to do the important work of examining what's going on, ultimately because we need to keep Canadians safe. This is something that I've said again and again. This is a time that calls for us to put Canada first, party second. And I've seen both from Pierre Poilievre refusing to get a security clearance, refusing to do what's necessary to protect our democracy, and from Justin Trudeau, who is very slow in taking steps. We've seen both parties put their parties ahead of the country. I believe a leader needs to put the country first. And so we'll continue to fight hard to make sure we are protecting Canadians, we are protecting our democracy, we are keeping people safe. So I look forward to the debate tonight where we talk about what those steps need to look like. And I'll continue to push for a committee that will constantly look at, will be ongoing, looking at the relationship between Canada and India with a view to keeping Canadians safe.
Who said no to your unanimous consent? How are you so sure it's the Liberals that said no to this committee?
I thought it would be the Conservatives, given the fact that their leader is unwilling to get a security clearance, given the fact there's allegations directly touching the Conservative Party from foreign interference, specifically from India and the Indian government, the fact that the Prime Minister pointed out that members of Parliament or parliamentarians from the Conservative Party are involved in or are compromised. I thought it would be the Conservatives, but we were paying close attention, and the no came from, it looked like, Mr. Lamoureux from the Liberal side. And so it came from the Liberal side, and that's another example of the Liberals, I don't understand why, but putting up a barrier, stopping the important work of getting down to what's actually going on. How are Canadians being impacted, and what more can we do to protect Canadians?
Do you think the Liberals are trying to hide something?
I don't know why the Liberals would say no. I know the Conservatives seem like they're hiding something. They're unwilling to even know what's going on, and they're turning a blind eye. They're looking away from the heinous acts of a foreign government committing violence and criminal activity on Canadian soil. So that's clear from the Conservative behavior, but I don't understand why the Liberals would say no to this when it is an important step to have accountability, to keep Canadians safe, to dig into what's going on, how far is this, and how much more do we need to do to keep Canadians safe.
Last week, you didn't want to answer the question about whether you've received any threats personally. And then later in that same week, a story came out that your brother-in-law had been warned about threats to his safety. I'll ask you again if you can answer whether or not you face threats. And then also, do you feel like the Liberal government is taking threats to the Sikh community seriously?
Like I said, it's not about me, and so I'm going to focus on the threats that Canadians are faced with. I think it's really important to point out it is something that's truly a threat to all Canadians. When people are being extorted, when guns and gangs are involved and bullets are flying, everyone is impacted. When a foreign government is hiring and instructing criminal gangs in Canada to go out and engage in violence, that is a threat to all Canadians. So I really want to highlight that. And with respect to the Liberals, I found that they've been slow to act. They've been hesitant. They've said no. We've had to fight them for accountability. We had to fight them to bring in the public inquiry. They said no again and again, and I kept on getting them saying, no, we need a public inquiry. We need to make this independent. This is very serious. We've got to protect Canadians and our democracy and our system. And the Liberals said no again and again. So we had to fight hard to get us here. So my critique of them was, again, that delay, the fact that they said no, the fact that we had to push them and fight them. And now again, they said no to the Canada-India Relations Committee, another example of them saying no when they should be saying yes to protecting Canadians.
Can I get your reaction? Two BC men pleaded guilty to second-degree murder of the 2022 shooting death of Jagmeet Singh Malik, one of the two men acquitted in the Air India bombing. Could I just get your reaction to that?
Well, anytime someone is held accountable for a crime of murder, it's an example of the justice system working. I'm sure for the family that gives some relief to know that the people that were responsible for an act of murder were caught. I think it's important for our legal system to make sure that we are able to catch and arrest and then convict murderers. So that's an important step.
Can you just say that again in English?
Yes. I might be a little bit clearer on this one because it's a bit murky, the situation. Well, instead about making it about me or making it about politicians, we already know that there are Canadians who, just because they've raised criticisms about what goes on in their country of origin, folks who have come here from Iran, folks who've come here from China, from India, are being targeted because of their advocacy, because of what they've raised. They are being targeted. They are targets for showing up at a protest to say what's going on where my family still lives is bad, or the fact that they're violating human rights, it's bad. Those folks that are now Canadians are being targeted here in Canada. Their families are being targeted. We've heard about that. That is wrong, and that is something that should give us worry, and that's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on the impact to my party or to me. I'm talking about what the impact is on Canadians right now that tell us their stories of having threats and harassment because they've simply raised concerns about human rights violations going on in their countries.
Madame Hogue had mentioned in her earlier report that there were a number of ridings that had been targets of foreign interference. So I'll put that to you again with taking this public stance against India. Are you also going to take any further steps to protect your party in the next election?
Well, we're going to follow any of the recommendations given to us to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. We encourage, of course, the Canadian government to do everything possible to prevent any foreign interference in our electoral systems. And we want to make sure people and Canadians know they can participate in an election, they can vote, their vote matters, their vote counts, and the results of the elections are not impacted by foreign interference. So that's why the work of the public inquiry is so important. People want to know that they can vote and that their vote matters and that their electoral system is free and free and fair, but also free from foreign interference. And that means impacts on political parties or impacts on the outcome of the election. These are all reasons why we've got to protect our democracy. We want to make sure people are free from violence in their communities, that they're not afraid of guns and gangs and bullets flying in their communities. And that's why the emergency debate today, the Canada-India Relations Committee, these are all important steps to keep Canadians safe. Merci, thank you very much.